Camnet Breakfast Show today, Tuesday, 20th September 2022. It is a beautiful Tuesday morning and it's already cool here in Lusaka. I don't know about wherever you're watching us from. I don't know how the weather is, but here in Lusaka it's cool to hot early in the morning. Of course, I'm not alone on the show, but I am with my colleague Miriam Kemba to help me discuss today's show. Good morning, Miriam.
Good morning, Zipporah. I love the fact that now you're agreeing the fact that the weather is cool. But you know it was raining the day before yesterday in some other parts of the country. Yeah,
that's the northern parts.
And then the sad story I read on one of these social media platforms was that 2 kids were stricken by a lightning. Yeah.
In September. Is that lightning in January? Then you're not so suspicious.
Exactly.
It can be science.
I don't know. It can be anything. Yeah, it can be anything.
Zambia, we're a Christian nation, so we believe in other things apart from science.
You remind me of the discussion that we had last time where, someone was saying, no, there's no witchcraft, there's no stuff like that. Yeah, the doctor. But anyway, yeah, it's a crazy thing. But so far, so good. My morning is okay. I'm ready for the day. It's a lovely Tuesday morning. We are glad that we're here back on set to give nothing but the best to our viewers out there. In case you have just tuned in, this is the Camnet TV Breakfast Show that comes to your screen from Mondays to Saturdays at 7 hours. Every single morning we bring you nothing but the best. In case you're watching us live on Facebook, please do send us those contributions, those comments with regard to the topic of discussion that we are going to have this morning. Exactly, Zipporah. So what do we have for our guests before we, I get on talking and talking?
And so at 7:30 we're going to open our phone lines and we'll be talking about one of the trending issues, which is the case of sodomy. So what is your take on the cases of sodomy that are happening? Is it that they were already happening but people are not reporting, or is it that indeed the numbers have increased? Because when you talk to the Zambia police, they always argue stating that maybe it's not that something has increased, maybe it is because people are now reporting like they were not reporting in the past. But then the other time we talked to a clergyman, that is Bishop John Mambo, who attributed the cases of sodomy to the Lusaka July event that we had. So really, what is your take on the sodomy cases? And at 8 hours, we're going to be talking about Suicide Awareness Month. So September is Suicide Awareness Month. Has Zambia invested enough in mental health? And so we expect you to join us in the conversation. But just now we go into the health corner. And a reminder to our viewers that you can actually come and sponsor the health corner. So join us on the other side.
Good morning to you listeners. I'm Dr. Mutinta Muyuni, member of the Medical Women's Association, and I'm here to talk to you today a little more about the menstrual cycle. Today we are going to discuss the menstrual cycle disorders. Now yesterday we talked about where this all starts, the beginning of what we call our womanhood or our mark of womanhood, the menstrual cycle. We have a monthly menstrual period. Now that can come. The bleeding can be anything between three days to about 7 days. And it comes every, say, 21 to 28 days ideally. Now I want it to be clear that each woman must understand their own cycle. Some women or girls may have a 21-day cycle, meaning from the start of the last bleeding until the next bleeding, there's a space of 21 days in between. The first day of the bleeding, we call it day 1. The middle of the cycle is where we expect ovulation to occur. Now I'll give you a tip. There are a lot of apps on our phones these days that help us to count and keep track of our menstrual cycles. And this can help us anticipate. For example, if I know I'm traveling the week I'm having my period, I'll know to prepare a bit extra, or I'll know what I'm expecting. Maybe I might need some painkillers for my period pains, things like that. So it's always good for us girls not to just say, oh, I can't remember when my last period was. Let's be aware, let's be smart, let's predict our expected period. I'll tell you why a little bit later. So when we have our periods, we may differ. So don't feel bad if your period comes every 21 days. Rather, understand yourself and your own cycle. I'm emphasizing this because we always compare ourselves to other people. Try and compare maybe even to the women in your particular family, or your mother, your sisters. See how it went for them. But by far, embrace your own cycle as your own. Manage yourself, because we are all unique. Each of us has a unique cycle. There are disorders associated with the variations in the menstrual cycle. One is amenorrhea. Amenorrhea is absence of the menstrual cycle. It may be primary, meaning by age 16, 18, I've not had a menstrual cycle at all. In this case, we'd encourage you to seek medical care and see, why is this not happening? Is it that there is something different in my reproductive system, or my hormones are just delayed in maturing up? My reproductive system, my ovulation is delayed. What could be the problem? Your doctor or healthcare provider will be able to assist you, do some tests and find out. Like I said, don't worry about being different. Let's embrace ourselves. Let's not panic. There's good news for everybody. As long as you accept how you are as an individual, you are good enough for me, you are good enough for everyone else. The second disorder I'll bring your attention to is polymenorrhea. When you have bleeding starting and stopping and resuming again within the same month. We call that polymenorrhea or frequent menses. This can be a bit upsetting because sometimes during our periods, the fact that we have to change pads, the fact that we become a bit moody, a bit bloated, so slow down in everything that we're doing, having a period twice can be a bit much. And so you want to take care of yourself and see, do I just have a short biological cycle, or this is caused by a medical condition? All these answers can be told to you from a healthcare provider. The challenge with polymenorrhea or frequent periods is sometimes you become anemic, or your blood level or hemoglobin becomes low. You may feel a bit dizzy and a bit uneasy as you are going about your work. Sometimes you even black out. Don't let yourself get to that stage. Know your cycle and know how to manage yourself. I think the most common disorder of the menstrual cycle is menorrhagia, what we call heavy menses or heavy bleeding. Now this one can be due to hormone levels. It can also be due to anatomic conditions or physical conditions of the uterus. It may be larger because of fibroids, or it may be larger because of the lining is thicker because of conditions like polyps or small growths within the lining, or increased thickness due to the influence of hormones like estrogen. Now, like polymenorrhea or frequent periods, menorrhagia typically will lower your HB or your hemoglobin. It will lower your blood level and result in anemia if you don't manage yourself. Now, because we don't talk about periods, we might not know that this is actually a problem. So I want you to listen carefully if you fall in any of these categories and you find that your quality of life is suffering because of your menstruation. Visit a health center, discuss with us, open up, don't be shy. A lot of women go through this, but the trick is knowing how to manage yourself. I'm Dr. Mutinta Muyuni, gynecologist from Medical Women Association, talking to you today about menstrual disorders. We'll talk a bit more about that tomorrow.
I hope you did learn one or two things there with regards to menopause. It's very, very important that you continue getting this update, these healthy talks from the doctors, all the way from the Medical Women Association of Zambia. It's about, like we were discussing in the background, I think, you know, there's also a need for parents to start normalizing and, you know, educating young children when it comes to, you know, sexual reproductive, you know, issues. Let them not only learn about this in class. Remember the discussion that we were having background on the screen before we came on the screen. You know, many a times that when a young girl reaches puberty, she's not informed of, you know, certain issues that she needs to do by her own mother. You know, sometimes they'll say, no, your grandmother needs to tell you this. But sometimes you find that they learn these at school, and then sometimes they don't even take, you know, paper.
Sometimes they learn,
yeah,
especially these days, and then now sometimes they may learn through a wrong means. So you have to make sure you educate them, they get the correct information. No myths. People like teaching myths, but they have to teach the correct information. I remember there's a workshop I attended yesterday by Plan International where they were saying these cases of teenage pregnancies mostly as a result of people not wanting to discuss the things with their children because of these cultural barriers. So, but then at the end of the day, you're not discussing, you're not educating, your children end up pregnant.
I know on many occasions as African, you know, it's sometimes a taboo to start, you know, sitting down your child and then discuss about various issues. But anyway, this is for our own good. I think we need to start normalizing the thing of sitting down our girl child, our boy child, you know, to educate them about these issues so that, you know, they don't go there on the internet and learn weird things. No, on the internet you find various things there. That's the more reason why, like you mentioned earlier, that this can also be attributed to the high levels of teen pregnancies that we are experiencing in the country. But anyway, right about now we'll go direct to our money market and see how the kwacha is performing against other currencies. So the US dollar is buying at 15 kwachas, selling at 15 kwacha 53 ngwe, and selling at 15 kwacha 84 ngwe. The euro there is buying at 15 kwacha 51 ngwe and selling at 15 kwacha 81 ngwe. The British pound is buying at 17 kwacha 66 ngwe and selling at 18 kwacha 01 ngwe. Then we have the South African rand is buying at 80. Is it 18 ngwe? 88 ngwe and selling at 89 ngwe. Zipa, in as much as I know that we keep our interests is mainly focused on the dollar, but if you see the British pound there, I think the buying part and the selling part is also, you know, increased. Yeah, but anyway, we appreciate the fact that, you know, the kwacha keeps on, you know, gaining momentum, and, you know, this is a very, very good thing for our country, especially for the people who are doing business, those who are importing and exporting goods. And we hope that with the continued appreciation of the kwacha, we will be able to see the boost of the economic recovery in the wrong way. Yeah.
And speaking of economic recovery, Miriam, I admire, is it the Rwandan president, Kagame? And, you know, people are criticizing him. Do you know what he did anyway? It depends on the angle that you look at it from. So you're saying he's closed down about, is it 6,000 churches? because people are making a business out of people. So you're saying don't build more churches, build industries. So you're saying that some churches are just there out in the business of making money out of people.
But Zipporah,
No, that's why I'm saying it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Like, there's some genuine churches, but then there's some which are identified as, especially a lot of mushrooming.
they just want to
churches.
extract money from people.
Yes. So on the other side, some people may say, no, you've closed the church, but then you have to look at what kind of church has been closed. So you were saying it's closed down those churches which are trying to extort money out of people, trying to make God's word a business.
A business,
so you're saying instead of focusing on building churches, build industries. So
interesting.
It's said to say, no, it's a church, but not every church like really has good intentions.
Well,
build industries if you want your economy to be revived. To build industries, don't build churches. But then, of course, build churches, but they have to be genuine churches. So me, I understand him because he said the churches is closed are trying to make a business. So I don't know, but anyway, that's about it when it comes to...
That's an interesting business.
Yeah, and just a reminder that it is actually up for sponsorship there. And just now we take a look at one of yesterday's stories, which is a story done by Tito Kalama on sodomy. So Miriam, there is a street adult who was allegedly sodomized and died. So what is your take on the issue that we had?
Zipporah, I don't know if we, like you mentioned earlier, I don't know if we never used to report these cases to the police. That's the more reason why we keep on seeing an increase. But you know, the sad thing is that it seems that cases of sodomy, they're now increasing on the high levels. Just recently we saw 5 boys, is it in Chongwe, at an Islamic school who were sodomized, you know, by, again, young boys, again, between the age of 13, somewhere there. And anyway, we hope to see where the case, who are allegedly sodomized, well, we hope to see where the case will go if it is brought before the courts of law. But yesterday's story, when I watched it, I really felt bad. You know, this is a young man at the age of 32 who was taken advantage of because of his vulnerability. He doesn't have a home. So, you know, people would just take advantage of him. But is it right? Where is the spirit of Ubuntu? Why should you take advantage? And anyway, sodomy, we know that this is against nature. It's against tradition. It's against what we believe in. We are Christians. So why should we go ahead and, you know, do stuff like that?
Shocking, you know?
It's really shocking. Zambia has not accepted, you know, gay rights and stuff like that. So why should we keep on seeing an increase of such cases? So this is a worrisome thing, and we hope that relevant institutions can come on board and, you know, address this issue with the agency that it deserves. Because if we're going to keep quiet as leaders and then we don't say anything, trust me, Zipporah, in the near future we are going to be increasing double the number than we are experiencing or recording right now. Yeah. So let's get direct into playing that story, and then we'll get to be discussing.
It all started like child's play. At first, it was only whispered in the corridors of Zambian prisons. People who dread going to prison for fear that hardcore criminals are in the tendency of sodomizing fellow inmates. Then there was that audio recording of a crying mother painfully narrating that her children had been repeatedly sodomized. There was also the recent report of 5 pupils of Islamic Education Trust of Zambia who were alleged to have been sodomized by 3 older pupils that led to their arrest. More closer to home, on Friday last week, police officers deposited a body of a street kid only identified as Kalale, who is said to also have been a wheelbarrow pusher at Soweto Market in Lusaka. For the purpose of identification, the face of the victim has been shown, for he had no fixed abode. The corridors of UTH mortuary are eerily quiet, and the stench of death is unmistakable. The attendant wheeled the body on the gurney for viewing. What has shocked medical personnel at Zambia's biggest referral hospital was the extensively damaged state of the victim's fecal passage. They could only conclude one thing: Kalale was a victim of sodomy abuse, obviously by his fellow street kids. UTH Public Relations Manager Natalie Mashkolo cannot come to terms with the sad development as she labors to explain.
We have a body of a 32-year-old male. He goes by the name of Kalale, and he was brought in by police from Soweto. And he appears to be a victim of being sodomized over a long period of time. Because when he came and when he was examined, his backside had it's just unbelievable what has happened to it. It's kind of open, and it just shows us that something was happening to him over a long period of time. And you can just see he was not also in good health, and he's from the street, so we don't know where his relatives are, and we're appealing to people who are missing a person by the name of Kalale that his body is in the UTH mortuary.
Sodomy is described as a natural offense, which is contrary to Section 155 of the Penal Code, Act Chapter 87 of the laws of Zambia. Reports of sodomy and homosexuality is taking root in Zambia, a country that has been declared a Christian nation. Strange but true. Tito Kalama, Camnet News.
A sad incident there. Miriam, your thoughts on that issue? It's so touching. Say on the parts where Madam Natalie Mashkolo said it happened over a long period of time.
Yeah, he was being sodomized for a long period of time. He was there on the street. His health was not in good condition. But now the ministry, UTH now, management at UTH is calling on relevant authority to come on board and identify him because he's of no fixed abode. So they don't know his relatives. Yeah. So they need to go.
And I'm sure that's what his abusers took advantage of.
Yes.
Everyone knows this person, he doesn't belong anywhere, he just do whatever he wants. Maybe it's even his fellow street adults, who knows?
Obviously it's his fellow street adult because he's 32. I don't think a 13-year-old boy can grab him and, do that. But anyway, it's a sad thing that in as much as this has happened.
One of the stakeholders in this same issue who are actually saying, that was, I think, is it the state member of parliament who was saying, we need to make sure that even children in correctional facilities are protected. Because who knows what's happening to those children there?
If you heard when, this clip by Tito, when he started his story, he mentioned that we used to hear stories behind these walls of the correctional facilities, that it happens in prisons most of the time, Zipporah, but now we are hearing it's now in public where, we keep on increasing, recording this increase in the number of cases. A very, very sad situation there, but we hope, like we mentioned earlier, that relevant civic leaders, government can come on board and ensure that they address this issue with the much urgent attention that it deserves. We do not need to keep quiet on such situation because the alarming levels at which we are recording such cases is very worrisome. But anyway, we open our phone lines now. Please, in case you're watching us live on Facebook, please do send us your messages. We'll be able to read them through. Those who are watching us in the comfort of your home, please do call us. Give us that call. Tell us your thoughts with regards to the topic of discussion that we have this morning. What is your thought on the increased number of Sodom cases in the country? What do you think should be done? Yeah.
And in the same line, Miriam, we have another story which I did yesterday. We're talking about the morals in the country. So this was actually a story from Plan International Zambia, where they had put together all female members of parliament to discuss the same issues of sodomy, teenage pregnancies, and all that. So they're saying the onus is on parliamentarians to actually go for stiffer laws and all those issues. Really.
Yeah, because those are the people who make laws, yeah.
We need to work with traditional leaders because they're saying what's happening now is worrisome. And then some of the MPs even said even issues of HIV and AIDS. Now we don't hear much sensitization about HIV. It was like back then, but now we take it like everyone knows. Do you hear messages every now and then on how to prevent HIV on the radio? Do you see posters on TV? Everywhere. No. Those things are more like in the past, in the 2000s, yes. But now I don't know if it's because of ARVs, PrEP, and all these other issues, people don't really do that sensitization. So they're saying, even as much, due to the teenage pregnancies that we're seeing, we need to make sure that we also carry out a message of people protecting themselves against HIV and AIDS. Let's just take a look at that story on morals. Oh, we actually have a call before we even take the story. Hello, good morning.
Hello, how are you?
We're fine. How are you doing?
Yes, this is Mr. Uma from Livingston.
It's good to know that Livingstone is watching us this morning.
Yes, this topic, in fact, issues like this, homosexual, this is all one enshrined in homosexual. It is not supposed to be even mentioned in this nation. I can see, even some pastors, some church leaders, some other bodies, they are not talking straight over this matter. The problem is that some of them, they are doing these things. They are compromising with these things. What is supposed to happen, my sister, is that we're supposed just to be out, not speaking against, but acting. Look at the way they are coming out over these issues of process of crime. And everyone will be calling you, hey, no, Anasa, Amandigwe, hey, what? And why not this issue of homosexual? Why is it that the Zambians are quiet? Mother bodies are quiet. Even the government itself is quiet. We're supposed to have a press conference. The government must put up a press conference over this matter, specifically for this matter, to say anyone that we see doing this is going to be arrested. They must be put up to that, not compromising. There is not even in any way of compromising, of discussion, nothing. It must just be outright. You do this, you are arrested, taken to court, prosecuted, and taken to prison. Simple. Mugabe did it in Zimbabwe. Uganda, Mr. Museveni did it there. In Zambia also, blessed DPN of Edita Chakwadungu came out strongly. That's why, even that IMF never came to Zambia, because Edgar Chakwadungu was against this rubbish thing that is happening now. This is rubbish. We must not condemn, but we must act against it.
Thank you.
Nothing like saying condemning, acting against it.
Thank you so much for your contribution, sir.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so
I
much.
think that's very valid. You can even tell from his passion there. And Miriam, the other time, anyway, I don't know, social media, I don't know if it's true or not, but I saw that time whereby, is it in Uganda, President Museveni, I'm told he arrested 2 gay couples and said, only be released when one of them gets pregnant.
Yeah, it was true.
So, really, that's the kind of approach that you should take. And you can hear from the corner there that is very passionate about this thing. He says we need to hold a press conference, so the government needs to hold a press conference just specifically on sodomy, not like other issues. Just but then you saw UPND spokesperson Cornelius Mwitwa yesterday addressing it among one of the issues. Yeah. So
Zippo, I just heard your thought there. We have a caller. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
You're through to the Camnet TV Breakfast Show. Who are we talking to this morning? It's good to know that Choma is watching. Please go ahead with your contribution, sir.
I just want to say that why is the government quiet over this issue? I just anyone this issue. And that may be any stakeholders like from the Christian, but whereby everyone is just quiet about this issue. Cases I agree with each and everything. Why is everyone quiet over this issue? When other issues are very active, the issues of corruption, the issues of there's a lot of issues, but for this one, just the news, what is going on?
I think that's something which they have to give us an answer to who ask them, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah, so
like you were mentioning.
at the press conference, although it was not like one of the things on the agenda. So the press briefing ended, but then it was just a question raised by one of the journalists saying, what is your take on homosexuality? But then that's when Mr. Cornelius Motwa, UPN spokesperson, said, we have been consistent and we are still saying the same thing. Now we are against homosexuality. But people want, anyway, we had the first caller there saying, there needs to be a press conference just to specifically address
this. Yeah, because, people are now worried. Every time when you go on, television, you switch on your TV, you hear stories. You read in the newspaper, you hear stories of a 5-year-old boy being sodomized. You hear of a 32-year-old man being sodomized. We heard last week of, this man.
We had a call. Just what you thought. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Good morning.
Hello?
You're through to the Camnet TV Breakfast Show. Who are we talking to this morning?
Yes, I'm John Binanzi. I'm calling from Dola.
It's good to know that Ndola is watching. Please go ahead with your contribution, sir.
No, that's Kukuma. What here is a Christian nation. We don't need such things, nasty things. Please, there are number stakeholders, the government journalists, but okay, we will share. We will seriously then number pastors, number bishops, they are quite money speaker, the Nangulismo. That here is a Christian nation. Just to super Christianity, not a Christianity. But the people who are watching not African or American. Please, to our pastor. Everybody who are journalists, not okay, about we don't need to speak with each other.
Tata Shamgwai, thank you.
Yeah, and you can see, Miriam, that is something that is of concern to everyone, just from the coast road.
It is.
It's a concern.
It is, Zipporah. We are a Christian nation. I don't think we are going to, deny this fact that we're a Christian nation, and based on our values, we have denied and condemned such things. So if we see such things, this becomes a worrisome to us. This is why various people are now calling on relevant authority to come on board and to address such things. Yeah.
And Miriam, my thoughts, if the country is really serious about handling these issues, I think one of the places where people have to do investigations is boarding schools, Miriam. When you find that a girl's boarding school or a boy's boarding school, I'm telling you these things. They need to investigate what really goes on there. Because
not only
this culture even comes from. I'm not speaking from without.
Just hold your thoughts, Zipporah.
Oh, we do have a call. It's a very hot topic.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Tom.
You're through to the Camnet TV Breakfast Show. Who are we talking to this morning?
This is the voice of Munari Senior.
It's good to have you on the show. Please go ahead with your contribution.
My first lady there, you are looking very nice. How are you, my dear?
I'm fine, how are you, sir? Thank you very much.
Good. I just want to still to make a contribution to do that protest all the youth from Munari. I mean from Kanyama.
Though it's not our discussion, though it's not the topic of discussion this morning, but you can go ahead.
Oh, okay, thank you so much. I think I totally agree with the submission made by April, but my advice to the past members, we had a convention where the leaders were actually chosen from. There are no shortcuts to that. What our party is guided by the Constitution. We know it is true for some people to be mentioned there. We know that they are really behind that process. We need to together, making that conference with Cornelius. Even the attitude, the way that is appearing, you could even tell that you are behind it. Some of you have to tell those youth that the party sector is the one they are and it will never be done. And we know that there is also another member of parliament who is always found in the marriage center. So they're sitting every day can actually take the pattern what has done, so it will never happen. Moreover, if you feel that there are actually some lines of witnesses in honorable Garico, is that the best way to get out your grievances? Yes and no. So for me, I don't agree with Matomora. I don't agree with one of my best views when I was ever meeting that there is always a procedure you want to follow. So these are the people who are coming for fear. That was always the law. They are trying to imitate like what happened between the GPM and Richard Saliba. We know one of the people who is behind that process, who did in a minister. That is, she didn't want to become an SG, even after the corporation, even after that coming from OPM. And she's not even a child, not even a something like that. She didn't want it. National position.
Now your take on our topic of discussion this morning.
For this party, some of the people they just joined, and when they just joined, they shouldn't bring their faith.
Now, could you kindly give us your take on the topic of discussion this morning? Okay, we lost that caller before he could, contribute to what we are saying this morning. But I think he was contributing to what we had yesterday when we were talking about the youth in Kanyama and the protests, all those stuff. But anyway, this is not our focus this morning. Our focus this morning is on...
I was been talking about, since it's not related, I was talking about the need to investigate what goes on in boarding houses, because I find that this is actually this is one of the breeding grounds. Not all boarding schools, but maybe you find that maybe boys boarding schools and girls boarding schools. And I'm not just speculating. I was actually at a girls boarding school, and Miriam, you can just ask anyone who's gone to like a girls boarding school. But this is the breeding ground for Sodom. So if we really want to curb these things as a country, we need to make sure that such measures to curb down happenings are put in place.
I was having a talk with one of my friends there from one of,
we have a call.
The media houses.
We have a call. Hello, good morning.
You're through to the Camnet TV Breakfast Show. Who are we talking to this morning? Could you kindly speak up a bit louder? We can barely get you.
Hello, good morning.
We can... Who are we speaking to?
Kindly call us back.
Your line is really breaking. Please kindly call us back.
Hello?
Okay, we can now get you. Please go ahead with your contribution, ma'am.
Okay. The cases of Sodom in the country are risen up a lot. Yes. And I'm also wondering why people are quiet, especially the government. This is really bad. Our young girls do it. So I think about this, and the government should come together, talk about this issue, and maybe end it. I don't know the solution, but the mother body to come up with the solution. So we are tired of seeing all these things happening on social media, in our community. It's really bad. And it's disturbing our young boys here. Not only boys, but girls as well. I think they should, maybe these people who are wearing to be like women, I think they should put this into an end. I think that's my contribution for today.
Thank you very much for your contribution. We value your contribution.
Thank you very much.
I sound like a customer care service.
But
Yeah.
one takeaway point I've gotten from our caller is that, these people who dress like women should, there should be a law there. But, people would say, no, I have a right to dress.
They'll say women also dress like men. They'll say women should stop wearing
trousers and stuff like that. But they're trousers for women. But I don't think they're skirts for men.
But I think this is, because I heard her mentioning another point where she said the church mother bodies. I think maybe she feels like the church mother bodies should somehow speak aggressively. We've heard them speaking. We've heard EFZ, the Fellowship of Zambia. We've heard this event and many others actually speaking on the stage.
Zipa, like I was said before we had that caller, you know, there's I was having a discussion with one of my friends who said, you know, HIV cases. He did a story. He's coming from this one of the media houses. He says HIV cases in prisons are high. And then you get to ask how, you know, because it's allegedly purported that sodomy cases, they are high as well. That's the more reason why we had, back then, we had people advocating that if someone is arrested and then they have a wife at home, they should be given, you know, conjugal right. Exactly. So, again, it's not only in boarding schools, but in prisons and other places. Yeah.
A serious issue.
It is.
You know, so we just play that story that we're about to play earlier on morals before we actually jump into our next segment. Let's take a look at that story on morals that we compiled yesterday.
2022 data from the United Nations Population Fund UNFPA shows that nearly 30% of adolescent girls in Zambia become pregnant by the age of 18, painting a gloomy picture on the situation of teenage pregnancies in the country. This often leads to their future being dim, as their return to school is not always guaranteed after having a child, as many feel demotivated. Boys are also now becoming a concern, as their well-being is not guaranteed in view of the sodomy incidences that have been recorded in the country of recent. Female members of parliament who convened to brainstorm on these challenges on Monday, in a meeting put together by Plan International Zambia, have made various suggestions on how these vices can be reduced. Key among the speakers was Mwandi Constituency Member of Parliament Sibeso Sefulo, who says sensitization on HIV/AIDS also needs to be revamped.
It was very disheartening to learn that 7 out of 10 children between the ages of 14 and 24 are getting infected. So as we are talking about teenage pregnancies, we need to make sure that we put a full circle combat to make sure that we are combating the teenage pregnancies, we are combating the sodomy that is happening around the boy child, and we are also providing them with SRHR issues so that gap is bridged.
However, we find that our children have got less information, hence they cannot make decisions on their own. And when you leave children even at your home right now, and they can allow anyone to come in and they can go out, it means that we still have a problem. And for sure, as long as our children can't know when they'll use a condom and when they should use it, then we have a serious problem.
You could also deliberately, expand your engagement to capture parents, where deliberately skills on parenting are also shared.
Meanwhile, Plan International Zambia representatives add that parents need to normalize discussing reproductive education with their children.
That conversation can only happen when we sit outside that box that we've called our culture of not talking to young people and begin to speak to young people. We have a lot of mental issues around the young people that go unnoticed because we are providing. Because I've taken you to school, I've taken you to Banana, so go. I've paid, is it 42,000 what? Yours is to go and learn. But I'm not mentally stable to sit away from everybody else I cover with. So how do I then bridge that gap? I find solace on the internet.
We are looking at how do we ensure that young people, especially girls, have access to services, are able to demand for services, commodities are available, also have information, the right information, to ensure that they make the right choices around pregnancy, around marriage. So how do we ensure that really there's a lot of access to the correct information in that space?
The emphasis from the stakeholders is that both boys and girls should be kept safe and well educated on the dangers of illicit sexual activities. Zipporah Mshala, Camnet News, Lusaka.
Yeah, because you find... So welcome back. That was a very interesting story there where we're taking a look at some of the members of parliament yesterday, just taking us into the issues of teenage pregnancies as well as sodomy. I hope you learned one or two things. But just now we jump into our next segment, we are talking about Suicide Awareness Month. So September is the World Suicide Awareness Month, and this is the time when we get to share a lot of stories of survivors, can be suicide survivors, as well as look at Zambia's mental health facilities. Do we have enough mental health facilities, and really what is the stigma associated with mental health in Zambia? Because when we talk about mental health in Zambia, people just think of those who are mad, but really, what is mental health? And so in studio we have Ms. Trudy Kawumba, who's a mental health activist, to just help us discuss today's topic. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning and welcome to the Camnet TV Breakfast Show.
Thank you.
We are glad to have you.
I'm honored to be here.
So please, just tell us a bit about yourself. Who's Trudy Kawumba? For our viewers who are watching you, they're out there for the first time.
Well, Trudy Kawumba is a fashion designer. I'm known as a fashion designer and a motivational speaker. Before I got mentally ill, that's what I was known for, but I'm only new into this mental health activism because of the condition I have right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So, jumping direct into our topic of discussion this morning, do you think as a country have invested enough in mental health in addressing these issues?
Well, I wouldn't say no, because apparently I've been introduced to a lot of mental health practitioners and I've met a lot of psychologists. The only thing I have noticed is that the government, I think, hasn't invested so much in mental health. So for me, I feel if you want the nation to progress and develop, you need to invest in mental health issues, because if the mind is not functioning properly, you cannot really progress well. Just like a car, without an engine, it can't go anywhere. So is the person with a brain that is not working properly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier about, going through this stage of mental illness. Kindly take us through what exactly happened.
Well, it's quite a long story. I have written a book and I've done quite a lot. So what I'm going to do is I'll cut it very short. So for me, I had a series of bad things happening to me. Like growing up, I was molested at the age of 5, and my mother never knew that I was molested. I was told I'll be killed if I tell my mom, and I kept a secret at the age of 5. In growing up in my teens, I think I was raped twice, once as an adult. So all those things, I was dealing with them alone. So having this series of negative things happening to me affected me a lot. So I had a lot of unresolved trauma. And when I went to China, actually what happened was I was not even diagnosed. They never told me what the problem was. So I got to dig into what they call schizophrenia and bipolar and these other mental illnesses, and I discovered that actually mental health is very broad.
Yes.
The only thing people think is that mental health is just for people that are mentally ill. Because I feel mental health is your daily life. When you wake up, how are you feeling? What are you doing? How are your actions? Because for me as a designer now, it even gives me a broader platform to even talk about mental health using fashion, because the first thing you do is when you think of mental illness, the first thing you think of is the way someone is dressed. But I've also discovered that there are a lot of people that are actually sick and they don't even know it. They hide in clothes. There are certain people that are so loud in dress code because maybe they have low self-esteem, so they feel the outfits would speak for them. There are people that are genuinely ill, you can tell by the way they dress. But there are also people that have mental issues and they hide in overdoing sex by having different partners. Some will just go into drinking. So it's quite broad. And for me, what triggered it is I lost land. So upon waiting to recover my land, that is aside from the past traumas, and I went into depression without knowing it. So the depression was so severe that no one even noticed. I just noticed I stopped talking to people. I started withdrawing. I stopped sleeping. I would eat once in a while, and before I knew it, I was just on the phone. I fell down, started barking like a dog. Before I knew it, I was undressing. Neighbors came, some were praying. And after 2 or 3 days, I think I even locked myself in the house. After 2 or 3 days, one of the people I had at my skills center just had to call my sister, and that's how I was brought to Lusaka. And I was in and out of China, so I've been on medication actually for 4 years now. But I have noticed that I have a group on WhatsApp of people with similar issues. You find that the people that have been on medication for 25 years, some 10 years, some 5 years. So mental health is a condition, and people actually bring it, it comes with stigma. I think it's something that we need to talk about a lot in Zambia, which people don't, because people are ashamed that people will think of what they'll think of, and they don't know how to deal with the stigma.
And you talk about the issues of stigma. Have we seen enough education, maybe from an early age, maybe in school? Do we have enough sensitization of mental health? Or is it something that people shun to talk about altogether, meaning that people have got all these beliefs and myths around mental health? Have we seen enough in the education system?
I think I'll talk from experience. All I would say is that there's just less that is done in mental health. Talk about workplaces. You need, what do you call me? I'm not very educated. Policies. There need to be policies in workplaces. For example, you hear of kids killing themselves. You wonder what problem can a kid have to kill themselves. Talk about workplaces, talk about, even in churches, you hear that, I cheated in body to commit suicide. So there need to be a lot of policies in these workplaces, in schools, and a lot of people need to just get involved. Let's not leave mental health issues to mentally ill people, because we both experience mental health issues, whether you are mentally sound or whether you are mentally ill. For us who are mentally ill, I would even say you are safer staying healthy, because it's not good to be on drugs, because you adjust to a lot of things. I've had to adjust to a lot of things. Yeah.
And you talk about how is the family set up really? Do families talk about these issues together? Do they embrace each other? How is the situation in terms of families in Zambia when you talk about issues of mental health?
After designing my project, which I'm calling the Love Project, because I believe that mental health starts with you and it ends with you, and it starts with love and ends with love, because love is the only thing that would heal you faster than even medication. I have spoken to families and nations to come in my project, because I've realized that it actually starts in families. Before you actually go to crucify yourself or commit suicide, your family should be the first people that should know what is going on with you. But you find that most of the times people will not even open up. The family will not know what is going on with you, because there's no relationship. So we need to go back to the family, what do you call them? I would say family, not really rules, but a family
bonds.
The bond, you need to bond with your family. You need to have that relationship rekindled, because you find that sometimes you want to share with someone, you would rather share with an outsider than your family member. So the family comes first. For me, I was lucky my sister was there. She never let me down until I healed, and there are very few, because I gave her a very hard time. And you see these people that you see around, it's because sometimes families get tired, because the situation is not that easy. It takes a brave person to really see to it that this family member is taken care of.
Interesting. Yeah. In case you have just tuned to the Camnet TV Breakfast Show, we are looking at the Suicide Month. Has Zambia done enough to invest in mental health? In studio, we are joined by Trudy Kaumba, who is a mental advocate activist, and she is also a designer who now tells us her story of how she overcome this problem. And coming to you, sorry, how did you manage to overcome this stigma? I know when you were sick at that moment, you would, despite having people around you, would, come on board straight to help you and pray for you. I'm sure you did receive some certain type of stigma. Yeah. How did you overcome that?
For me, I think what worked for me was the word. I'm a Christian, born again Christian. I'm a person that strongly believed in the word so much. So One thing I must tell you is that mental illness does not heal by prayer alone. You need counseling. You need people to tell you everything is going to be fine, because what is happening to you is inside. And you know, inner wounds can only be felt by the owner. So for me, the past 4 years has not been easy, because I've had to work on my self-esteem. I'm in a community where everybody saw me mad, so to say, for lack of a better word, although people don't like using that word. So I've had to work on myself. I used to talk to myself a lot. This is why I say self-love is very important, because you need to speak in your life when no one is. I'll say everything is going to be fine. I had, you know, my business went down. I went from 10 to 0. So I had to speak to myself. So stigma starts with you. What you feel about yourself will reflect. That's what people will think about you. So although, yes, there were a few that would say, oh, dear, you still hear that. They still talk. But, you know, when you've built yourself so strong, for me, the word of God is my rock. It is my strength and my shield. As long as I know that God's word says good things about me, what other people say would not affect me. Like Paul said, what you say about me does not add or subtract anything that God has planned for me. So fighting stigma, I think, has everything to do with yourself. So you need to build yourself inside so strong to a point where outside energy is not going to affect you. Although to some point, yes, you would feel it here and there, but okay, so
yeah. Interesting. You did mention about now you are telling your story through fashion.
Yeah.
How are you doing that? And how have the community embraced and appreciate the thing that you're doing?
Well, it's just yesterday when we were going around, the response was very overwhelming. So we are going with a megaphone, inviting people to a free fashion show, which I'm telling my story and trying to enlighten people about what really happened, because people just saw me get sick, they've seen me heal, and they are now seeing me do things. They're wondering why I'm like that and what really happened. So I'm going to tell them my story. So I'm inviting neighbors that used to help me. Sometimes, you know, they would come help my... It was hard. So now what I've done is I'm gathering all those people that were close in my neighbors to come and now explain to them what really happens with mental health. So yesterday was our first day going round. So we'll be going round, that is in Garden House. There's a place called Pumwanza Community School. That's where it will be happening. So the response is very overwhelming with the people that are, so far the ones that have gathered as a team to help me do this, because you can't do it alone. One, because you avoid to be stressed. Stress is not very good when you have a mental illness condition. So the response is overwhelming, and I have a feeling it's going to be filled up. So it's never happened. They've never had a free show. They've never had a fashion show. They've never had the thing that I have put in place. So I've literally taken my story and put it in form of art. Because mental health, just sitting here and talking about the brain sometimes is very boring. So you need to do drama. So there's a bit of drama that will be done. There's a small dance, and there's the fashion show itself. So yeah, I hope to be doing this annually, or maybe 2 to 3 times a year. So it will depend on how it will go and the strength that God gives me.
Do you have plans to target other areas apart from Garden House?
Yes, I spoke to Mr. Reha Monga if I could get Katonda Street. They closed that street up for me, and then would do, because that one will be very open. And it will be, you know, I've done shows in 5-star hotels. I think for me now, if I'm going to do a show in a hotel, maybe it will just be maybe for fundraising specifically, because there are a lot of people that are on medication and they can't afford. I would rather do shows on the open now, because I believe mental health affects everybody. Go to City Market in the morning or in the afternoon. I want to like what I think, you know, they go through so much. Go in a bus, call a conductor. You know, today I was just looking at one. Imagine the whole day now, you are just like that. So you are the person that is mentally healthy. Can you just pay for a conductor to say, Nala kuripirira CT lero? You know, you just have that, you know, you have empathy. So if the more empathy we are going to have, I think the more healthy we are going to be, because it didn't get in, we just, even if our phone, it's none of our business. So if people really took mental health as something that is part of everybody, I think it would be a better world to live in. And it's global. It's not just Zambia. Yeah.
Quite interesting. It's a positive story that you're telling out there. I think
very interesting indeed. Exactly.
I didn't even know it was as serious as you are putting it, but it gives a lot of hope.
Gives a whole lot of.
It was bad. I used to Andres. I did a lot of.
But now you have a positive story to tell us.
Oh yeah.
And in case you're just joining us, we're discussing issues of mental health in Zambia. September being Suicide Awareness Month, so we're looking at Suicide Awareness Month. What is your take on mental health? Because when you talk about suicide, it also borders on mental health. And so you can call us on the numbers that are scrolling on your screen, or leave us a message on Facebook. And so we actually have a contribution here from one of our viewers who says, in Zambia, mental health equals madness. We need to change that attitude. And another one who says, people resort to ending their lives because they have no one to talk to.
Exactly. For me, I nearly committed suicide because when you are mentally ill, you hear voices. This is why you find that they are always talking to themselves. They are in their own world. So there are those voices you hear. So before you get to kill yourself, what happens is these voices become so real. For me, they told me to go to Findeko House. When I reached Findeko House, at the last floor, I should jump off. Luckily, I was listening to Christian voice and I came to my senses. So fighting mental illness and negative things depends on what you've invested in yourself, so that when you're attacked, it is the negative and the positive things that are fighting you. So if the negative things are more than the positive, this is where you find that people have nowhere to, there's no backup. For me, at least I had backup, because even in my mental illness state, I was able to tune into Christian voice. I was able to read even the Bible, because my episodes don't hit you. Sometimes you are back to normal, sometimes you are sick like that. So you need to have backup in investing in your soul. So when your soul is weak, because there's no backup within. So the soul needs to be fed. And people don't know how to feed their soul. That's where the problem is.
You mentioned about, you being as a Christian, this is one of the things that helped you, to overcome this situation. Do you think churches are doing enough to invest in mental health issues? A lot of time, people would run to the church and tell the pastors their problems, then you would say, no, you'll be healed, my daughter. Most of the different churches that we have seen, have churches come on board to help, in investing in such issues, offering the needed counseling?
You see me want to laugh because I went through so much when I was sick. All I needed was someone to talk to, and someone to notice that this is not a demon-possessed person. All I need, it was a mental case. It's a mental health, a mental illness, because mental illness, for me, there were times whereby I drank different kinds of anointing oils. I was prayed. I'm not saying it's wrong, get me right.
Did the pastors, mistaken your issue to being demon-possessed or
Let's
stuff like that?
Let's not go in there. I wouldn't, I think I've put that in the book. It's better people work out book on Gariafuma. But all I can say is when you go to church, that's where real issues are. People don't know the difference between a demon and a mental health problem. There are people you don't even need to pray for. For example, financial crisis. Don't pray for that. Gather money, give them, it will help them think properly. Some people are carrying burdens not because of anything, it's because we haven't learned to differentiate real issues from spiritual issues. So a mental illness is caused by, for me it was caused by depression. All I needed was someone to talk me out of the situation, not to pray me out of the situation. So there's a place for prayer and there's a place for counseling, and just talk to a person, assure them things will be okay. Deal with your past traumas. I never dealt with my past traumas, because for me, I would even remember things that everybody did to me when I was young. I would even tell them, but she's not okay mentally, but she's able to. So my brain, there's actually war that happens within you when you're mentally ill. I remember 97% to 95% of everything that I was feeling, the way I was thinking and the way I was acting. So it's been very difficult to balance the two, because I still remember how I know how a mad person thinks. I know how a normal person thinks.
We have a call. I just heard your thought there. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
You are through to the Camnet TV Breakfast Show. Who are we talking to this morning?
Yeah, the network problem, but I'm Mrs. Miranda.
Yes.
That's a nice, good program. But I would request that you use more of the vernacular, because I think it's about family sana. I don't expect somebody to have this time.
Okay.
So, mukapatwa program yacu kwanza kwa tekinyanja olekibemba olikiramba from kushie.
Okay. Natasha Mkwai.
Okay.
Thank you so much. This tells you, like people want to know about this, and then sometimes language would be a barrier because they want to.
Maybe you should have been an interpreter, or maybe you should have actually other programs.
We would definitely, we have taken into our consideration, and would definitely look out for that.
And the good part is she's appreciating that it's a nice program, so people are
exactly.
Camnet TV, I think for me, when I came across it, you have a lot of following in the community, which I agree with. Because abengi mukasanga bashwe chinyanja and other languages, so the more vernacular you use, the better.
I think we need to make specific vernacular programs.
Before I hold your thoughts there.
Oh, we have it.
Hello, good morning.
The volume is a bit low.
Hello, good morning.
Can you speak up?
Hello, good morning.
Yes, good morning. You're through to the Camnet Breakfast Show. Can you tell us your name, where you're calling us from, and your contribution?
Hello?
Hello, can we hear you?
Hello?
We can get you. Can you get us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Please, who are we talking to this morning?
You're talking to Mrs. Kaniki. I'm calling from Masai Boma, Luansha.
It's good to know that Luansha is watching. Please go ahead with your contribution, ma'am.
And the program is very nice. And you mentioned something about love. So now I've come to realize that most of the mental patients we see on the road, it's not that they are mad, but there is no love. So if there is love, those guys who are on the street, somehow they can be healed. Yeah, so I think that lady, she can continue with sensitizing the people. You can imagine what she passed through at the age of 5, she was molested. And then someone told her not to review the things. I have been watching there some, as a mother, we should keep an eye on our children. When we see them there with the drone, we have to find out what is happening in their lives. Thank you so much. That program is very educating.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And one thing I found interesting is what you said, maybe what you feel contributed to a situation was unresolved trauma.
Yes.
So, and that's what the lady there is bringing out, saying many of these things happen. Miriam, especially if you're living in a house where all of you are not blood related, I think that's one of the things that you have to actually look out for.
Exactly. And just also the advocacy or the much needed attention that parents should give their children. Like our previous caller just said, if you see your child withdrawing and not giving in the vibe that the child used to give, please look out, because most of the time you would hear parents would leave their children pass through certain circumstances or challenges or situation because they want to keep a certain interest. I remember covering a story, Zipporah, we have done various stories where a child has been defiled and stuff like that, but because the mother maybe wants to keep the marriage, you say, oh no, or stuff like that. Yeah. So yeah, it's a very, very quite sad situation, but Coming to our next topic, are we doing enough as a country to ensure that we invest in local rehabilitation centers in various communities? Basically, when you talk about mental health, I know a lot of people would mistaken it of, you know, being a mad person and always go at Chinam, and Chinam is always associated with people who are not mentally stable. Exactly. But do you think at this stage we need to have different centers in the community where people can rush to? Basically, we understand that, you know, mental health, a lot of things contribute to mental health. Depression, you know, gender-based violence, defilement and stuff like that.
When I talk about feeding the soul, is what I mean is mental health actually starts at when you're conceived. How were you conceived? Where your mother starts complaining, you know, everything goes in you. By the time you're born, there's a certain way you are affected in a way, whether you like it or not. So at the age of 5, for me, there were so many things I would have gone through because of the way I was born. So when you talk about rehabilitation, I think the best rehabilitation starts in your home. What do you do for relaxation? But you find that in the African culture, everyone is hustling. There's no time to say, okay, so these days you find people are flooding bars and nightclubs, not because they want to have fun, no, they want to get rid of certain things they are going through. And when you dig deep into mental health, you discover that it affects everybody. There are certain people I would not even mention here, but from politicians to pastors' wives, school-going children, everybody. So if we are going to make it our business, I think we are going to do well. Yes, the government should come in a lot, because there are no rehabilitation centers. The only things you have is like where we are, Nika community school, but you find, go in these communities, you find that junkie, there are plenty.
And then you talk about your safety.
Yes, so this project I have called Love, it's also targeting such. Being a junk, actually, what I've discovered after digging deep into it, it's a culture. Those are people with so much potential, they don't know how to come out. That's why America, because they have a certain way they want to live life, but because there's no one to nurture what is in them. This is why they end up being called what they are called. Look at their dress code. You can tell by the way they dress, you tell that this one we need giant or chinkari bwanj. But sagging, without knowing that, you know, sagging came with a certain way. There's a person who are later sagging, there was a reason why. So they will follow trends. So yes, we need to look into rehabilitation centers, and it's a fight that the government should come in. I have tried, luckily I have a personal number for the Minister of Health whom I've worked with. She saw some of the programs I was doing in Livingstone when she was Minister of Tourism then. It's a pity that she's very busy now, she's unable to respond. But these are some of the things we would want the Ministry of Health to actually be part of, because if we are not part of it, that's one and created development. Development, if our brains are not functioning properly. For example, look at Ama Junkie. For me, they are my concern right now. They are all over. You go, all you do is you find them from a bus stop. Instruction and check it and go on. Just telling you to, it's the only way they make money.
I agree with you. You know, Zipporah, on Saturday we were in Kanyama doing a certain story. You know, after we were done, I forgot something. As I was getting my thing back, you know, a guy told me, but sister, this isn't going on 5 quash. Then I looked at the guy, I was like, oh, okay. You know, like, not yet in Nippon Park or sister. It's a must. Yes. You know, they're even commanding you. See, I'm like, hey, wow.
Yes.
Interest.
And really, do you feel that we are talking about suicide prevention enough as a country? Is it something that we feel is a taboo, or are we talking about it? when talk about preventing suicide?
I would want to talk a lot about men. The other time I was on a TV program and I got a lot of feedback from men. Men do not have a place where to vent. Men would rather just go and sit. You know, they are asking me questions as a woman to say, I'm only a woman. Some of them are even married. So you need to look into the male child. What are we doing from childhood? What have we invested in them? Because when you talk about molestation, it comes with a man. What are they taught? When you talk about rape itself, it comes with a man. What things are we impacting in them to make them better citizens? And at this point, when you talk about marriages that are breaking, you talk about the man who is the head of the house. What are they going through? So if we are going to focus so much on the men as well, I think there's been enough things talked about the girl child, the women, the rights and whatnot, but what are we doing about the man? Because when you look at even suicide prevention itself, you discover most of the people that actually are victims in Wamuna, because they have nowhere to go and talk about issues they are going through, because when they open up, others will feel, you are a weak soldier. Mamuna is not supposed to open up this and that. So I feel there should be places where people will be comfortable to talk and open up and share what they are going through without being judged, because they are human as long as they have a heart. Yes, so we need to go into that and create platforms as well where men should be able to open up. I think for me, men are the ones that are contacting me a lot about this. So I feel when you talk about suicide prevention and mental health, Wamuna, and the good example is go to Soweto. I always tell, if you want to know situations about the country, go to Soweto. But I never pushing on my wheelbars. Look at the conductors, look at the drivers, the way they react, the way they talk to you. It's like you are cutting each other, you know.
Yes, you know.
You are hammering one another. There's no love. There's no, you know.
Oh, we have a caller.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
You're through to the Camnet TV Breakfast Show. Who are we talking to this morning?
I'm calling from Chingola.
It's good to know that Chingola is watching.
No,
Thank you so much. You know, this actually basically tells me something. You know, people would want to, you know, get what you're saying, but because of the language barrier, and I'm glad
exactly, switching
and I'm glad that you are doing that. I'm glad that you're doing that.
But not everybody has baby.
So balancing. Maybe I can come another day.
Exactly, we'll do definitely that. But yes. I just love the fact that you're trying to, you know, do this mixture of Bemba and English, so that each and everyone who is out there watching us will be able to get one or two things there. But coming to the fact of talking about investing more of mental health awareness on a male child, are we doing enough as a country? Basically, we did see earlier on before you came, we played the story of a young adult, a street adult, he's 32. He was sodomized, and then he's late now. He was sodomized.
I think it's something I saw yesterday online.
Yes, he was sodomized. And, you know, this, according to UTH management, they said, you know, this happened to him for a long period of time, and his health was not good again. So, coming to this, are we doing enough?
Another caller, Miriam.
Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Hello. Yes, you're through to the breakfast show. Kindly go ahead.
I can't get you.
You are through to the Camnet TV breakfast show. Who are we talking to this morning? You know, I almost said breakfast show.
From watching us from which area?
Huh?
Mutitembera kuti wachimwemwe. Okay, we lost.
Kindly call us back.
Kindly call us back.
And
So,
do we have enough counseling centers? Maybe, for example, you talk about workplaces. Do we have enough counseling centers?
yeah.
They are there, except that we need more sensitization. Like for me, I've just discovered that there are a lot of psychologists, there are a lot of therapists, there are a lot of mental health practitioners, except we are not loud, so to speak. We need platforms. I think for me, if you give me like this platform, I would talk to others. We come. Nimbipaliko wa doctor, our mental health, papaliko wa psychologists that way. So it's also up to the media, because also, you know, the media plays a major role. Has the media itself ventured into such things? What is the media doing about it? Because, you know, people can be there, but, you know, is the media also covering such issues? Yes, so if the media comes on board, I think...
Just hold your thought there. We have a caller. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning. Hello. Kindly speak up. We can barely hear you. Kindly speak up. Okay, please call us back. We seem to have a bad connection there. Hello?
Can you get us?
Kindly call us back. Kindly call us back. So you can continue, Madam Kaumba.
Yes, so I think there has to be a relationship between the community, the church, the government, and the media itself. If we unite, I think these issues will be very easy to deal with, because as long as there's no relationship between government, the media, and the community, and no one can tell me that in our communities that we just look at them. You know, for me, sometimes I even say, if my sister didn't take time to really invest in her time, let her business go down to ensure that I gained my sanity back, I would have been like any other person out there. Because you know, the only time you think of a mad person, I've eaten.
We have another caller. Hello, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
We are fine, thank you. How are you?
Thank you. This is Mr. Fury calling from Zambezi.
It's good to know that Zambezi is watching. Mr. Fury, please go ahead with your contribution.
Yeah, thank you. In the first place, I want to say we may have psychologists, we may have all these people that are providing these services. But for me, the first thing should begin with the family.
Yes.
The family, we must have, I don't know whether we can have families being trained, helped how to detect these challenges, and of course providing behavioral psychological issues in the home. Secondly, we can come to community levels where a few individuals can volunteer so that at the end of the day they are trained, they are helped how to provide these particular services. And then now, above all, my thinking is that as a community, we need to bring about activities that changes the mental aspect of man, the thinking. I think the major challenge we have is the thinking, the reasoning power of our young people, of our society, of our community. So in everything we do, for example, even people that do music, let them start doing music that challenges the mind of people. Those that are doing movies, and the whole society should aim at that. I think that should be my contribution this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
So basically they are talking about the thinking. How do we think as a society? Maybe your response to the caller?
For me, this is why I had to sit down. I was going to say, look, at some point I was this famous designer doing very well. Then all of a sudden I just got sick mentally, and people didn't know that I had gotten sick. They just thought maybe I had traveled, that I had gone out of the country or something. So now for me, I'm saying, how will I pass this message to people out there? This is why I have said, I have designed so the structure of my story in form of art. So when I say art, I'm talking about fashion, even the way I would design clothes. For example, muntu akavala mini. There's a reason why they're wearing a mini. You know, fashion is actually, the word I'll use is intentional. There's no one who can say I accidentally wore a mini. So for me, mentally, when I look at a person avala mini, I will look at their mental status to say, okay, there's a reason why avala chena avala, and there's something they want to achieve. So you will not wear a mini at church, for example, because you know that, okay, this is the house of the Lord. You cannot wear a swimsuit at church because, you know, this is not a swimming pool. So everything to do with fashion actually has a mental health attached to it. So like he is saying, yes, the family comes first. Morals are taught at family first, but you find that in families most of the times, our parents, first who are educated, they don't prepare you for your God-given purpose on earth. They'll prepare you for education. Go to school so that you can say life. But there are certain things that the families actually leave out, which I feel we need to talk about a lot. Education alone is not enough. Education is limited because if you're a nurse, they'll only train you as a nurse. They will not train you to handle certain things. So these other things that need to be taught in a family should be taught by the family. For me, I started staying alone when I was 14 years old. I became independent at the age of 14. So most of the things I know is street smart. Me, I'm a street smart. So I'm mandated if I'm a book. In fact, I'm mandated role some chat long division in Kansai. So all I'm saying is let the families teach you what you will not learn at school. At school, they will not tell you when a man is touching your pants, it is wrong. Those are things you need to teach kids, because at the time when a child is supposed to be molested, they will know that this is how you need to respond. So yes, there has to be a relationship between family and the members, the community, and everybody else.
Thank you so much. This is where we come to the end of our breakfast show, and in studio we were joined by Madam Trudy Kaumba. Imagine Zipo.
Just when about to close. Good morning.
Good morning. You are our last caller on the breakfast show this morning. Please tell us what's your name and where you're calling us from.
Can you speak up? The line is very bad. We can barely hear you, sir. Kindly try to call back. I'm sure it's a very, very bad connection.
I think he's the same man that called before. He has something to say.
Yeah, maybe he's... Can you get us?
Yes.
Are you able to get us? Please go ahead with your contribution.
The thing is, when he says hello,
we can get you, please, sir. Go ahead with your...
Oh.
Okay. Thank you so much. We have taken note of your concerns there and your feedback. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Basically, Zipporah, he was just talking about language as well.
A lot of people want to hear, but the
exactly.
Two languages. Which language are we going to use?
Yeah, of course. Bemba. But anyway, thank you so much. Yeah, we have heard the concerns. We have taken note of the concerns. But this is where we come to the end of our Camnet TV breakfast show. For me, Miriam Kaimba, and my colleague Zipporah Mshara, it's bye-bye and God bless.